Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kid Lee, and the time has come. Full spoiler alert, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. So if you need to run, now is your time to run. Come back later, because everything is about to be spoiled. I've got a few notes here just to make sure I don't miss anything. I'm going to go over all the characters, or my thoughts and feelings on all the characters. And then we'll go over different things about the movie and just sort of, whatever I want to talk about. Because that's what we're doing. If you wanted to see, I guess I should say just here real quick, if you want to see a non-spoiler version of this, and I probably should have said this earlier, but there is a non-spoiler version of this video already posted on my YouTube channel. Now, I have now seen this movie twice. I saw it Thursday, then I had a day of reflection. I saw it Saturday and had about a day and a half of reflection and meditation on exactly what this movie is and what this movie means. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, first of all, the two new leads or co-leads of Daisy Ridley as Rey and John Boyega as Finn. Traditionally in Star Wars, they like to go with the unknowns. Sometimes it's worked out for them, like in the prequels, or the old movies, I should say, the originals, better word, and sometimes it maybe doesn't work out for them so well, like in the prequels, aka 1, 2, and 3. In this movie, they nailed it. Daisy Ridley and John Boyega absolutely nailed their parts. They nailed their roles. Great acting, great voice work, and everything that they did was just absolutely fantastic. And I'm actually going to steal a quote from another reviewer because I thought it was a really good quote when they were talking about Han Solo and Chewbacca. They said that Han and Chewie carried this movie, and it didn't need to be carried because of how strong Rey and Finn were in this movie. So they did a fantastic job. And of course, as I just sort of mentioned, you got Harrison Ford returning as Han Solo and Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca. Although, if you know Peter Mayhew now, the guy's pretty old. He can barely walk. So they used a stunt double for most of his work. I think all of the shots, like in the Millennium Falcon, and the ones that really didn't involve him moving too much were actually Peter, and everything else was the stunt double. But once again, Harrison Ford, Han Solo, a lot of people had questions on whether or not he'd be able to actually return to that role and make it look as good as he did back in the day. I think he pretty much nailed that. And that sort of goes for Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia as well. And that was actually the one that I was the most worried about. Because if you know Carrie Fisher now, as she's gotten older, she's almost turned into more of a comedian type than anything else. So I was really concerned on whether or not she'd be able to, be the Princess Leia again and really be sort of, hardcore and focused and serious. But I was very, very impressed. She absolutely nailed that role once again. You've got Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron. It's a character that we didn't necessarily get to see too much of, but what we did get to see was pretty bloody awesome. He's the best pilot in the Alliance, sort of replacing Luke and Wedge Antilles as that character. We have got Andy Serkis as Supreme Leader Snoke, or basically the new Emperor, and pretty much anything that Andy Serkis does is fantastic. So I've never seen him in a bad role, although, he does a lot of mocap stuff, or at least he used to. That's how he really got into the industry in general. But now he's gotten more into the acting side. And Snoke, I thought he was a great bad guy, great, potential new Sith Lord. And we only got to see him from the whole holographic standpoint, but I kind of got the impression that he might be a Rakataki. Again, that's just me guessing, but just based on what we got to see from that holo, I'm like, is he a Rakataki? He just kind of looks like one, potentially. So again, I thought that new bad guy looks really good. And of course, speaking of bad guys, we've got Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. Now, I actually have two different opinions on Kylo Ren. My opinion on him actually changed for the better when I got to see the movie the second time. And I'm going to give you my completely honest opinion on Kylo Ren when he took the helmet off for the first time. You know, on the internet, there's people who make videos of, you know, Darth Vader and they take off the helmet and it's like, you know, Jar Jar or some nerd or whatever. That's actually what I thought when I saw Kylo Ren for the first time. He took that mask off and I'm like, who's this punk kid? I just didn't feel like that they could have done so much more with like the makeup and, you know, different stuff with the face to make him look more, you know, Sith Lord-esque. And I just thought he's too young. He doesn't really fit that part with the mask being off. But then, like I said, when I saw it the second time, I connected with it a little bit better. And I think he's a good actor, and I think he fits that role really, really well. But I still think they could have done something more with makeup or something. You know, they do the black stuff or whatever. The orange eyes sometimes. They could have done something to make him just look a little bit more Sith-like, in my opinion. You have got the new female stormtrooper, Captain Phasma, who is supposed to be sort of the bounty hunter replacement, if you want to call it that. Unfortunately, that we really didn't get to see too much of that character. I've heard rumors that she's going to play a much bigger role in the upcoming films. But that was one character that I think a lot of people really wanted to see more about. You know, have her get into some gunfights or something with some, you know, against some rebel guys and just wipes them all out or something. But we didn't really get to see too much of that. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what we have for that character in the future. And to sort of wrap up this part of the segment, we've, of course, got the new droid BB-8, which, love that guy. Love the BB-8. Such a fun, cute little droid. He definitely nailed the spirit of the droids of the Star Wars universe. Absolutely fantastic. So I think what we're going to do now is I'm going to basically just very quickly, very briefly go through the entire movie. And I'm going to be skipping a lot of stuff. Like I said, I mean, we don't want to sit here for 2 hours and me go over every line. Okay, you know, the crawl happens. The crawl goes away. You know, we don't want to do that. So I'll briefly just say that I'm going to be nitpicking some stuff, but just realize that I'm nitpicking stuff out of love for this movie. So first of all, I'm going to say that, you know, there's the opening crawl, the crawl goes away. They always do a pan shot to something really, really cool. And this time, I think we got the weakest pan shot we've ever seen. I understand they were trying to do something different. It's like, ooh, let's do this planet here, and the sun's on the other side, and the Star Destroyer is going to roll through, and we're not going to be able to see it because it's darkened on the dark side or whatever, and it's basically just this shadow or whatever. Again, it's like, I understand they're trying to do something different, but yeah, it's probably the weakest pan shot we've ever seen. Next up, you know, of course, we got the village scene. I'm going to basically just skip over that. It was a good scene. No problem there. We go down to Jakku, and I'm not sure why they felt like they needed to use, or why they needed to come up with a new desert planet. Why not just stick with Tatooine? It's the planet that everybody already knows. There could have been, you know, a battle of, instead of Jakku, Battle of Jakku, there could have been a battle of Tatooine. I mean, Tatooine's already a scrap heap. Just add some more scrap to it and we're fine. So I don't really understand why they felt like they had to add a completely new desert planet. So, I mean, it's still a cool planet. It's just, you know, it's like one of those things, like you've already got a desert world that's super deep in the lore and all this stuff, and you feel like you have to go and make another one? Okay, whatever. I'll let it pass. More planets are always good, right? And this is where I'm going to start talking about music here for just a second. John Williams did the score for this. And as you know, John Williams, he is the man. He is the master. Nobody can beat him in movie music. And for every Star Wars film, he's always brought something new. He's always brought that new theme that blows everybody away. Except for this time. And again, I don't know whose decision this one, if it was JJ's or whatever, but the score of this film was very, very light compared to every other Star Wars film. And again, it didn't have, you know, oh, here's this new piece of music, the Duels of Fate or whatever, and we're going to remember, yeah, this new theme song is the theme song for this new movie, so to speak. The only one that I could really point out was there was a theme in when Rey was in the sand, and you could maybe call it the Jakku theme, is what I'm calling it. But it was this nice little melody piece that I thought was really, really cool. But other than that, again, I've seen it twice, and I can't think of any other really new musical stuff that they did for this film. It was all old stuff, and don't get me wrong, the old stuff is fantastic. But it was just, even the old stuff, it was like very, very in the background compared to a lot of the other films where the music was always such a big part. So I give it a minor deduction for the musical score not being as strong as in the previous films. And I should actually say here real quick that, again, in my other video, I gave this movie an 8 out of 10. So whenever I say I'm giving it a small deduction, this is where I'm getting my 8 out of 10. So the weak pan shot, that's like a 0.1 deduction. The weak musical score is a 0.1. I have a bunch of 0.1s that will lead up to 1 point, and then I have one big thing that is a solid point on its own, so that's my -2 score out of 10. All right, moving on. I think I'll move on to... I think Finn defecting and him helping Poe escape, that was a fantastic sequence. They get down to the planet, and I think the next shot that I will talk about is one of the epic shots from the film, and that is when Rey and Finn are escaping from the TIE fighters, and they see a ship off in the distance, and they're like, yeah, let's go take that. And it gets blown up, and they're like, fine, I guess we'll take the hunk of junk over there, and there's that pan shot to the Millennium Falcon. Absolutely beautiful. In the audience that I was in, I think both times, everybody kind of cheered a little bit. The funny thing about that Millennium Falcon shot there is there's actually that action sequence right there, and they actually show the Millennium Falcon before they show it for real. And I think there's a lot of people that didn't really catch on to that. And I really caught it on my second showing. So they show us the Millennium Falcon before that unveil shot. But the thing is, it's an action sequence, and so it goes by so quick, you're actually following like the actors, and people's eyes are on the action, and they're not actually on that background shot of you where you can actually see the Falcon. So that was very, very clever camera work on their part. But yeah, there's that big reveal. They get in the Falcon, have their little dogfight with the TIE fighters. Again, absolutely fantastic. And again, if I go back to sounds, set design, practical effects, very little CGI in this film, but practical effects, they nailed absolutely everything in this film. You know, the writing, the directing, the visual effects, all of it. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And of course, the Millennium Falcon starts breaking down, and Rey and Finn try and fix it. They then get captured by what they think is the First Order. That's what Finn actually says. He's like, the First Order's here, so we're going to go ahead and poison them instead. And then you get that awesome shot of Han and Chewbacca rushing in the door. That was another one of those just absolutely epic shots, and where the crowd just in the theaters went just crazy. They're like, oh. That was more, I think that was the noise that I heard more than anything, just people going, you know, it was fantastic. And then the story goes from there. You get the classic Han Solo, like, smuggling and swindling his way from the two guys, or the two factions that are fighting over him and all that stuff. So that was all just absolutely fantastic. I'm going to briefly talk about another small deduction for me, and that was actually Kylo Ren. And I'm kind of skipping ahead here because, like I said, I'm not going to go over the whole film step by step, otherwise we'll be here for over 2 hours. But I thought Kylo Ren removed his mask too early. I think they should have saved that for the bridge scene. And you guys know what I'm talking about. But we'll talk about the bridge scene more in here in just a little bit. I think they should have saved it for the bridge scene. And again, They should have done more makeup on him. Maybe he was even crying because he's kind of tore up about the whole light side, dark side thing. Maybe he was just wrecked. His face was just wrecked. That would have been maybe the way to go. A couple other really cool shots. I'm just trying to replay the movie back in my head. There's the scene where, again, they go to the castle and meet the little alien lady who I forget the name of her, and the First Order shows up and wrecks the place, and actually Rey gets captured at that point. At some point in there was the big reveal of the Starkiller base. So there's a couple things I want to say about the Starkiller base. One, the name Starkiller, if you don't know where that came from, it came from two different things. One, when they were doing the original script for Star Wars, and I'm talking about Episode 4, Luke's last name was supposed to be Starkiller. It was Luke Starkiller. But then they ended up changing it to, Skywalker, obviously. And then later, Starkiller was actually picked up by another character in the Star Wars universe. There is a character that goes by the name of Starkiller. And his timeline is in between, it's the 20 years between episodes 3 and 4. And Darth Vader actually takes on a secret apprentice. And in that storyline, the secret apprentice actually rebels against him and actually helps start the Rebel Alliance. And so it's possible that he was still recognized within the Empire or the First Order, and they maybe named that base after him. That's possible, I suppose. But the big thing on that is people were like, or some people were like, oh, another Death Star. Are we really gonna do this again? Come on, guys. The plot of this movie it's got a lot of similar items to A New Hope. Are we really gonna do this again? And to those people, I say this. Whether it's the Empire or the Republic, or another faction, or the Sith or the Jedi, somebody building a mega weapon to be destroyed is one of the main staples of Star Wars. It's what you do in Star Wars. Somebody tries to build a super weapon to destroy somebody else, and then they destroy it. And just to prove my point, it literally took me no time to put this together, but go ahead and take a look at this here real quick.
If you knew what I knew, you'd understand. If you'd heard what both sides are plotting, you wouldn't be eager to restart this war. They're building doomsday weapons, shields that envelop planets, missiles that darken suns. Republic and Empire are planning to raise worlds, annihilate civilizations. It will be unlike anything the galaxy's seen since the Great Hyperspace War. And it's too late to stop it.
This is Viken Space Dock, receiving on secure channel.
Good. You are few, but you must suffice. Hammer Station was an armored fortress built by the Republic during the war. Its primary weapon was a gravity cannon designed to propel asteroids into planets.
So there's just two quick examples. I had like 5 examples lined up, but I ended up, I'm like, two's enough. So those are from a video game, just as an example. But in the Star Wars movies, in books, in comic books, in the expanded universe, which technically is no longer canon, there is just example after example after example. Again, somebody builds a super weapon, it needs to be destroyed. It's a staple of Star Wars. So I have no problem with Starkiller Base and what they did with that. I was a little surprised that thing destroyed 3 planets or 4 planets in one shot. And one thing that I need to research that I've not been able to confirm yet, they clearly showed a city or city planet being destroyed. I don't think it was Coruscant, but again, I've not been able to confirm this. And the way that some of them buildings looked, it almost looked like Drummond Koss to me. So was Drummond Koss destroyed? I mean, if you actually know what planets were destroyed, leave a comment below. I'd love to see that. But otherwise, I'm gonna try and research that myself. Be interesting to know exactly what planets got destroyed. So moving along, what else was there? I'm just kind of looking over my notes here for a second. I think I'll go ahead and start talking about force powers a little bit. We got to see some really, really cool force powers in this movie. Some of the force powers that we've definitely never seen before on film. I mean, sure, we may have seen them in video games and whatnot, but it was a definite refresh, a definite change of pace to see some of these new force powers. A lot of them we've heard about, a lot of them we know about, but not all of them we've actually gotten to see before in this context. So that was very, very cool. And of course, you've got the scene where Rey was actually, chained up, so to speak, and she uses mind control or force power to get herself free. And if you didn't know this is information that's only been released within the last couple of days, because J.J. Abrams and company has been slowly releasing information about other big actors who actually made hidden cameos in this movie. The stormtrooper that Rey was talking to when she was doing "You will release these bonds and leave the door open," that scene. That stormtrooper was actually Daniel Craig from the James Bond films, if you don't know who that is. So that was pretty cool. And actually, it was also announced within the last couple of days when Rey goes down into the sort of the dungeon cellars, finds the lightsaber, and there's the sort of Force dream sequence, if you want to call it that, the Force vision sequence. They actually did have Ian McGregor and Frank Oz, who's the voice of Yoda. They actually came in and recorded lines for that. And then they also used lines from Alec Guinness from the original Star Wars films. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then I think the last one that I've seen announced, and this was actually shown in one of the trailers, Simon Pegg, who plays Scotty right now in the new Star Trek films, he also was in the movie as an alien. I actually was not able to spot which alien he was, so I'm not quite sure which one he was. Looking over the notes, what else do we got here? Oh, the humor. I wanted to talk about the humor. Again, in the original films, 4, 5, and 6, the humor, they nailed it. They knew when to make the droids funny, when to make things serious, and whatnot. And then they totally ruined it in 1, 2, and 3 with Jar Jar bouncing around and doing stuff. But back to this film, the humor was great. They nailed it. Absolutely nailed the humor when they had the opportunity to do so. So I applaud them. Thank you very much for nailing the humor. And then sort of just I'll say just real quickly, the film overall, they played it very, very safe. And I think that was very, very smart of them. They're like, we don't want to go too risky. We don't want to go too light. We want to go right down the middle and play something that is very, very safe. And they did it. They nailed it, and it was perfect. So now, with the next one's coming out, they can experiment. And the next one is called Rogue One, if you've not heard of that. And I'm pretty sure that they've already said that in Rogue One, there will be no Jedi, there will be no Sith, there will be no lightsabers. And it's all going to be like trooper battle and that kind of thing. So that is going to be a very interesting experiment for them, and I really hope that movie is good and it works out for them. So let's go ahead and sort of make our way to the end of the movie, and let's go ahead and talk about the big spoiler. So if you didn't know, Kylo Ren is actually Ben Solo. So Kylo Ren is Han Solo and Princess Leia's, or General Leia's, son. And again, sort of backing up for a second, in the expanded universe, if you didn't know, and again, I know the expanded universe is technically not canon anymore, but I'm just saying it anyway because they're still taking stuff from the expanded universe. So Han and Leia have kids. They're Force sensitive. Luke and his wife, they have kids and they're Force sensitive. Some, and I do believe that some go light side, some go dark side. They go back and forth. Some of them go back and forth. Luke trains them, blah, blah, blah. And so there was references to that in this film with Kylo Ren on how, and it's interesting. It was actually an interesting spin because up to this point, what we always see is it's a light side guy, and he's like, I'm being tempted by the dark side. And this was different. He was, I want to be dark, and I'm being tempted by the light. So that was very, very cool, very, very different. But again, the big scene near the end was you've got the X-Wings attacking, trying to take down Starkiller Base. You have got Han, Chewie, Finn, and Rey basically attacking from the inside. Han Solo comes across Kylo Ren. They have their confrontation. Han basically tries to turn him back to the light side. It doesn't work. And Kylo Ren kills Han Solo. Takes a lightsaber, puts it right through him, holds it for a few seconds. There's actually this really touching scene as Han is sort of going away, where he takes his hand and he puts it on Kylo Ren's face, and then he falls off into the ravine, so to speak. So that right there that's my 1 point deduction that I was referring to earlier. Because I'll tell you a couple things about that scene, and some of this may not be very public knowledge, but you can look it all up. It's totally legit. There's actually a very, very good documentary. If you've never seen it, it's called Empire of Dreams. It is the best Star Wars documentary that's ever been done, and it's one of my favorites. But Harrison Ford, I think he liked Indiana Jones a lot more than he did Han Solo. And so when they got done filming The Empire Strikes Back, Han really did not want to come back for the third one. He wanted Han Solo to be killed off in that movie. And that's another reason why I think, all these years, the 20, 30 years between these films, is because Harrison Ford really didn't want to play Han Solo again. So now, JJ and the crew talked him into doing it. He did an awesome job, but they basically said, you know what, we will give you what you want, and we will finally kill off your character. And that's exactly what they did. And you got to understand about Han Solo. I mean, we're all geeks, we're all nerds. We know all these characters by heart. But there are some characters within history that gain what I call legendary status. And that is people who don't know what Star Wars is, knows nothing about Star Wars. You can say, do you know who Yoda is? To one of these people. And they go, oh yeah, I know who this Yoda is. I've heard of him and all this stuff. Yoda, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia. These are all legendary characters that everybody knows. So when you kill off a legendary character, it's something, well, first of all, it's something that is rarely done. And if you do it, you've got to do it right. And I've got sort of mixed feelings on whether or not they did it right. Time may only tell on that because we don't know what they're going to do with these future movies. And I think that might be the thing that really tells the story on, whether they did it right or not. But, I mean, I would say that for what they did, what we know so far, it was good. It was disappointing. We don't want to see our heroes die. We don't want to see these legends die. And so it really struck an accord, a heart in a lot of us to lose this character. And it's really sad to see him go. And we're not going to get to see him in any of these new movies. So it's really, really sad. He did such a good job playing this character in this new movie. Again, it was just really, really sad to see him go. So let's go ahead and move on to the big lightsaber fight between the three, which was basically Kylo Ren versus tag team of Rey and Finn. I actually really, really enjoyed that lightsaber fight. It'd be really interesting to know exactly where is Kylo Ren in his training. I mean, clearly he's really strong in the Force, but I have a feeling like in lightsaber combat, he's not that well trained. I mean, I think he, as far as the status within, Sith, culture, if you want to call it that, I think he's probably considered acolyte, maybe. I mean, I don't even know if he'd be an apprentice. I think he's maybe just an acolyte. And a lot of how the lightsaber fight went down had to do with his very unusual lightsaber. It's a broadsword, so it's not a sword that is generally, very quick and nimble. It's a sword that takes the long, if I can get in the camera here, it's like the long strokes of when you're doing your swings. And I'll also say that when they originally designed lightsaber combat, they wanted it to be, like the Japanese, the samurai, that kind of stuff. You go back into the prequels, and they're flipping and they're dancing, and there's that one scene in Revenge of the Sith where Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting, and they basically do this, and then they cross. It's like, what's the point of that? That's not lightsaber combat. What we saw in this movie, this was good lightsaber combat. It's basically them just hacking at each other. Of course, Finn and Rey completely untrained in sword combat. As far as we know, I mean, maybe they have some training. Rey had her staff, so she's maybe got better, small arm training than what Finn did. But I just thought that lightsaber fight was just really, really good. They were just taking chunks out of each other. It's like, take a chunk. Oop, hit the microphone. Take a chunk here, and then Kylo Ren took one basically right here, about that far in or something. And it's like, man, they're just going at it. It was awesome. Just awesome. And of course, they destroy Starkiller Base. And the Resistance wins once again, and then at the end of the movie, you take the long journey to go find Luke Skywalker, and there's basically just this nice sort of scene between Luke Skywalker and Rey. But yeah, that was a very, very cool scene, the big reveal of Luke Skywalker. And my theory is that Rey is one of Luke's kids. I mean, my theory on this, I'll give you sort of my theory. And that is, Mara Jade, in theory, should be Luke's wife. So I think what happened was Luke went off wherever to go train the Jedi, try and get the Jedi Academy going, potentially. And Mara must have been raising Rey. And for some reason, she was forced to leave her on Jakku. And then she's off who knows where, maybe dead. And then the thing happened with Luke. They got separated, and that leads us years and years and years and years later to the start of this film. So, again, I think the next film is going to have a lot of Luke Skywalker, him training Rey. I think she could be in it. I think there's a potential to have Kyle Katarn in this next film, just to sort of bring it all together, and it'll be very, very cool, very, very nice indeed. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about? We talked about a lot. I just really gave my thoughts and feelings. So as I said, again, I gave the movie an 8 out of 10, so minus 1 point for the death of Han Solo, and like I said, 0.01 just for a bunch of little dinky things, like the opening pan shot was not what I would have preferred. The musical score was not what I preferred. The lack of Captain Phasma was a minor deduction. What else did I have for minor deductions? Drawing a blank here. Oh, just like little things like the very, very slight rehash of episode 4. There was another very small trench run. It's like, do you really have to do that again? But again, I'm nitpicking it out of love. I thought and this will be sort of my wrap up again. I thought the film was absolutely fantastic. I loved every minute of it. I definitely try and not overanalyze it, because you can do that all day. Because you want it to be perfect, and it's never gonna be a 10, but it's close. It's very, very close to a 10. So, ladies and gentlemen, the next one is going to be Rogue One. It's actually less than a year away. It's going to be next early December. And then episode 8 is going to be about 6 months after that. So we have a lot of Star Wars to look forward to. J.J. Abrams, I believe, is not directing another one. And his writing buddy, the guy's name is, or one of them is Lawrence Akashian, if I'm saying that right. He actually wrote Empire and Return of the Jedi, and he came back to write this one with JJ and one other guy, and he's not coming back either. So I'm almost more concerned now about these other films than I was about this one, because, you know, going into this one, we heard on how much heart and soul they put into it. They did it. They nailed it. Everybody's happy. Now we got these other ones that are coming out, and they're different directors, different writers. So it's kind of like, I don't know. So I guess we will just wait and see. But once again, fantastic movie. Loved it. So down below the video, I would like to hear what all of you have to say about this movie. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? I'd love to read what little nitpicky things maybe you didn't like or that you did like. Yeah, just go ahead and leave comments below. Let's see what you have to say. But that will go ahead and do it for this video, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you all so much for watching. And with that being said, everybody keep playing and have fun.